Hello everybody, welcome to Juno Books. I'm Rosie, I'm one half of the people who run it, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome Fiona Hutchings here to launch her new poetry collection, and Rebeca from Written Off, who's going to talk to us about that as well, which is an incredible project. So welcome both of you, and over to you.
Good evening everybody. My name's Rebecca Kenny. I'm the founder of Written Off Publishing, formerly known as Bent Key Publishing, and the background to my company is quite chaotic. So back in October 2021, I was a teacher. I'd been a teacher for 15 years. I was an English teacher in a secondary school in central Liverpool, and I was driving to work and I skidded on some oil and lost control of my car and got T-boned by a yellow Fiat Punto, the most embarrassing of all the cars to be hit by. And I broke my neck, I broke my back, I broke my pelvis, I broke my sternum, and I broke my sacrum, pretty much anything that wasn't an arm or a leg. And I went to Aintree Major Trauma Centre, and when I was in Aintree I did a lot of writing and a lot of poetry. And I wrote a lot with people from around the world, and we built a little pamphlet called The Poet Who Broke Her Back, which we ended up selling to raise money for Aintree. And off of the back of that, I thought I'd quite like to write about my experiences with the crash and with my recovery and with learning to walk again. And so with that, Crash and Learn came into the world, which is a name I'm going to dine out on forever because it's my favourite pun of all time. It's all about the crash, it's all about my recovery. And then I found that different writers from around my area, so Cheshire and Manchester, were approaching me to ask about being published. And I didn't know a huge amount about publishing, but what I did know is that I had the kind of skills to build a book, put a book together, and to get it out into the world. And with that, Bent Key was born. And we were called Bent Key because when I came out of Aintree Major Trauma Centre, they gave me a bag with my belongings, including my keys, which had been in my pocket at the time of the crash. And my front door key had bent pretty much in two. And if you've got a copy of the book with you tonight, just open it up and see on the inside front cover and the inside back cover, that is a vector of my actual front door key. So we were Bent Key. Then Ben Shapiro happened and decided to start a very right-wing media outlet in America called Bent Key. And when asked, his response was, "It's just a random phrase." But then they sent their lawyers after us, and so unfortunately we lost the Bent Key name. But getting our heads together, we decided that Written Off was actually a really good choice for us, because all of our writers are in some way marginalised, be they working class, be they struggling with mental health difficulties, be they disabled or neurodivergent or queer, all of the above. And at lots of points in our life we felt written off. And it's actually very perfect for Fiona's book, which is called Uncommon Labels, because it is one of those labels that we're given a lot of the time, even though it's not deserved. And so Bent Key kind of took a rest at the end of the year. We came into January as Written Off. So that's a little bit of a background of our company. We've been going now since January 2022. We've been nominated for 5 Saboteur Awards for various collections and for the most innovative publisher, which I'm really proud of. Last year we won the Saboteur Award for Best Anthology Collection for our collection of northern writing, which is called A-Up, which was the first kind of brainchild of then Bent Key, now Written Off. We're going to do a little bit of a Q&A, and then we'll open up to the floor for questions. But firstly, Uncommon Labels. What is it in a nutshell, Fee?
I think it sort of came from the idea really of there's lots of different labels I have had forced on me, I've chosen, I've had to accept or I've rejected. So I think it's like a collection really looking at a lot of those different experiences and how I know there was a bit of a running joke when we when we were designing the cover, Sam said to me, I'm going to show you the one I think you'll go for last, and showed me this one first. And the one that she thought I'd probably go for was a music one, was a tape one, like a mixtape. But when I saw that, the idea of somebody being sort of chucked in a box or trying to get out of it, I was like, that's just perfect, because I think that's what labels can do. They can be really, they can give us a lot of agency, and they can be really validating, but they can also absolutely kind of squash you and sort of define you in a way that feels untrue.
But what interests me is, why poetry? Why poetry? Because prose is such an easy option to talk about struggle and to gain empathy. So why poetry instead?
I was thinking about it because I've always written prose, and I've not written poetry probably since I was in my late teens, early 20s. But I think poetry lets you come at an experience or describe something differently. There's more texture, I think, sometimes in poetry. I think when I tried to write prose for some of this stuff, I got really bogged down almost in like the factual detail being correct or having explained everything, and some of it might also be stuff that I was like, I'm not entirely sure I want to be really, really explicit about that, but writing it as poetry I think makes it a bit more accessible. And yeah, I think it's just the way my brain works sometimes. It very much suggests itself. And I think you can encapsulate a lot in quite a short poem, but when we looked at the mocks for this, I was like, Jesus, woman, you write some really long poems. But you can sort of condense a lot of ideas, I think, more easily into poetry. But you don't have to, I don't know, sometimes with prose I feel like you're maybe instructing the reader what to think. Poetry leaves it a little bit more open to...
Okay. So, putting this collection together, it feels, reading it, that it's been quite cathartic. What would you say in terms of how producing and getting this into the world has helped you process your feelings about everything that you've been through?
I think I wrote, before I wrote this, I wrote another collection because I was procrastinating about another book that I was meant to be writing. It's not as good, and I think it was a bit too raw. I think getting that out of the way meant that when I came to write this, it felt more considered and kind of, right, this is what I want to say, rather than kind of feeling like, oh, it's just poured out of me and I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
I think it was that kind of, yeah, when I started thinking about all the different labels and how to explain and explore them, and that there were lots of ones I'm really happy with, that they weren't all negative. There were definitely ones I was like, I'm not having that, or I'm not being sort of reduced to one particular thing, and then there are other ones I was like, I really like that, or I'd chosen that, and there was something really validating in not just writing it but reading it to other people as well, and kind of being able to do that. So I think if I'd written this a couple of years ago, I think it would have maybe been very dark and ranty. I found some of my late teens poetry not too long ago, and I was reading it like, oh, okay. Yeah, sometimes an editor is exactly what you need. So yeah, it feels like it was a process, and then we've got to a collection I'm really, really proud of. There isn't anything in there that I'm kind of going, actually, I sort of wish I'd not put that one in, or it all feels kind of really comfortably authentic.
Oh, brilliant. And I think it reads that way as well. Like, it's definitely, I hear what you say about it not kind of being stuck in the negative, but it's also not toxically positive. And that's such a fine line to walk, I find, that you'll get a lot of people who are so focused on seeing the good in situations and clinging to the good in situations, when really, you know, there are shades in everything. There's dark and light in everything, and being able to capture the darkness as well as the light is such a talent, and it's done so well in this collection. So well done. Okay. So in terms of the book as a whole, is there one particular piece in there that you would say is your favourite?
I said you're going to have to send me the questions you're going to ask me before you ask me, because otherwise I will... And then you sent me that one, and I was like, really? Like, I'm known for making top fives of everything, minimum, and often multiple top fives for different So I went back and forth on this one, but actually I think it's probably Be My Carer, which is a poem I wrote about my children being my carer. For people who don't know, I had a brain hemorrhage in 2011, 13 years ago next week, when my children were very small. And that was quite a hard poem to write. It's quite a vulnerable poem, I think. But in part, the reaction I've had from Sheffield young carers, from other people who've heard it, I think in terms of something that feels like it did what I wanted it to do, which wasn't just kind of go, I'm really sorry you had to deal with this, but for other people to kind of have a, yeah, I have experience of that, or yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think that if I had to just pick one, I think it would be that one.
So you talk a lot about your family and your life and the fact that, you know, you have had people be your carer and been a carer yourself. This is a bit of a, I've not given you this question, so I apologise. But in terms of you as a holistic being, what role has care played in ultimately your happiness?
I think, I think there was a lot for me growing up where it was expected and demanded to give care whether I wanted to or not. And I think when I found like my found family, my closest friends, and some of the stuff that we went through, not just me being ill but other things, kind of that care for each other and how care is demonstrated in lots of different ways, I think was just incredibly it was empowering, but I think it was also quite healing to see that actually it could happen in lots of different ways. You know, for some people it would be, I don't know, turning up when you're in hospital and nearly getting everybody tripped out because you're making too much noise. I'm not pointing any fingers, but we both know it's you. Or, you know, just like turning up with food and sitting there, or getting really cross because somebody was mean to me in Marks and Spencer's and did they not understand kind of how hard it had been. There's lots of different ways of showing care rather than it just being something that is demanded and it's a sacrifice and as a negative experience. And I think having sort of my found family and my children and, you know, friends and the people you meet, I think was a really kind of that's been really genuinely empowering as opposed to toxic positivity. Yeah.
I think society is conditioned to think of care as a burden, and that's what I love about the work you've been doing recently and the work with Sheffield young carers, and the idea that needing care doesn't make a person a burden. And you do touch on it a lot in the book, and it's, you know, something I've only been through briefly during my recovery. But we are conditioned, especially as female presenting people or feminine people, to feel like we shouldn't require that care. And you can feel the kind of authentic ownership of that pride in, you know, recognising that it's not a shameful thing to receive care as well as to give it, and that ultimately you can read how empowering that is in what you've said. So one more.
Okay.
What do you hope to achieve with Uncommon Labels? What do you hope?
I think if people read it and either feel like they understand a situation or a point of view that they've not thought about before, and it feels like it gives them some insight, that would be great. I think if there's stuff in there that people read and think, yeah, that could be me, or I really resonate with that, because I know, and I'm sure a lot of us do it, you read a line in something or a song lyric or whatever it is and you just kind of go, that I really get that makes a lot of sense, and it can be really sort of, it makes you feel a bit less alone. I don't know whether the sort of people who challenge me about using sticks or blue badges are going to read this book, but if they do, it'd be nice if that made them sort of think, oh, maybe I won't ask that question, or make those assumptions. But I think if people read it and they get something from it, it's done. Yeah. It's done what I wanted it to do.
Just touching on music, I just want to read you the very last part of the acknowledgements page, which made me howl. To Freddie Mercury, Henderson's Relish, Marion Keyes, Suggs, Nick Hornby, Tori Amos, my original boombox, Sheffield, and all the other musicians, writers, and the city that shaped and inspired me. It's such a brilliant acknowledgement, and everyone that's read it has laughed their head off
Have
at it. It's just so you. I'm going to let you do a sacrificial poem.
Okay.
We call it a sacrificial opening poem because it's the first one of the evening. It's a little less scary because we've already had a little bit of a chat.
Yeah, I'm going to read one called Know Your Place.
What page is that on for anyone that wants to follow?
It's page 38. Because this is one of the first labels that I got given. So, know your place. Born with a womb, so required to procreate, in specific circumstances only, in a sanctified union. Produce more servants for an unseen God. Meet everyone else's needs, have none of your own. Conform to gendered expectations, told so many times. This is the role for a woman. To serve without question, love without malice, belong to one man, then be given to another. A contract formed above your head, sealing your body and mind into a new life of service. Reproduce effortlessly and quietly. As long as you don't sin, all will go to plan. Pop out babies like peas from a pod, efficiently, healthily. Raise and praise boys, form girls into obedient wives for the next generation. Sexuality is sinful if it's not straight. Either way, to enjoy sex is unseemly. Don't have an opinion, or worse, a personality. Be intelligent, but not more than a man. Women, you must know your place, or face the consequences. What were you wearing? Did you give him a come on? Subjugate all you want for others. No questions to be asked or answered. Blind faith is demanded and expected. It's God's way. It's the right way. It's the only way. Be small, delicate and demure. Eat, but not too much. Exercise strict self-control. Dress modestly. Most of all, be quiet. Shut up. Don't cry. Laugh occasionally, but briefly, and your laugh should tinkle, not snort or make your belly jiggle, or your eyes water. A woman should be invisible unless needed, gliding effortlessly around in the background, completing chores with no expectation of praise, a ghost running the machine, a house, a husband, and a family. And I thought, fuck this.
I'm going to start with a little bit of a reading from my collection. So Fiona asked me if I would read, and I love when people ask me to read. It doesn't happen very often anymore because I'm kind of the person at the top of everything. But I love sharing work from Crash and Learn because it feels like a whole other part of my life. Like it's a whole other part of my life before this even all kicked off. Before I knew you, before I knew Charlie, before I knew anybody that I work really closely with now. So it starts off very negative, of course, because I was in hospital, and it ends very positive. So I'm going to read you a couple from throughout. When I was in the hospital, I became obsessed with the concept of string theory and the idea that there might have been a world in which I didn't crash, or that I escaped, or that I didn't break anything, and there were these other worlds in which I died and everything had ended. And it was a big rabbit hole that I went down because I wasn't allowed visitors because it was COVID. But I did have the internet, which was dangerous. It did lead to Benki / written off, but it also led to some very interesting internet rabbit holes. And this is called string theory. Just a little content warning that it does talk about death. So I absolutely don't mind if you want to distract yourself. There is another universe in which I died, where the skid turned into a roll and my skull cracked open on damp tarmac, where one man lives with the feeling that even though this was not his fault, he is somehow still responsible for the screeching blood marks on the lane. A world in which my phone was smashed and nobody could call home to tell them that I was gone. There is another string of existence in which I close my eyes to brace, and that was the last thing I felt before I ceased to be a part of this. And sometimes I sit awake at 3 a.m. and I think about this and what life without me would be like, whether I'd leave more of an imprint on the world than the crimson stains on the road, or if I'd be forgotten quickly, like an X Factor runner-up or leftovers from an already terrible dinner. But As the sun struggles to rise because it is now November and the air is growing chilled, I also remember that I should not dwell on the physics of the universe, and that if I intend to, I must also realise that we are infinite, and for every universe in which I met a violent end that day, there are countless others in which I wake up. Thank you. I'm not going to use my book for this one because it's the only poem I've memorised off by heart.
Show off.
You'll get there. It only took me 2 years. I think one of the things that I try to embrace with Written Off is like I said earlier, the darkness and the light, and embracing every part of existence, even the shitty bits, because sometimes, not to be too toxically positive, but the shitty bits are there for a reason, and God knows we've had a few of them, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's called Elephant Juice, and I don't know why. I think it's when I was at school, we used to mouth elephant juice across the room at each other, and then if the person said "I love you" back, you were like, ah. And I don't, was so immature. It has nothing to do with the poem. I just like the story. So this is Elephant Juice. I want to feel everything. Every single little moment, every fragment and every shard of existence. I want my lungs to burn with the strain of containing all of this experience. Fill me with sorrow until I feel like I am drowning, and then wrench my heart from my chest with sharpened claws before replanting with a softened palm. Pull me apart limb by limb and then stitch me back together, but just make sure that you use threads of leather, because I want to feel everything. Coat me in diamonds and put me on display, or tuck me inside your coat pocket and hide me away. Bring me dismay on a silver platter. Destroy all the confidence I had that I might matter. In fact, go one better. Try to deny me that fuel that I need, that I use, and what inspires me, and just watch how I burn anyway. Brighter than fireworks, because what is for me will not go by me. And yes, sometimes life really hurts, but I want to feel everything. I want to know the searing pain of loss, and then I want to feel that juxtaposed, and I want to feel the joy of sunshine pressing on my back, the intense fear that comes with loving you or with losing you. The crack of bones, the smash of glass, the taste of wine, the smell of grass. I want to feel I had a chance and did it all, both clean and crass. I want to feel everything. So give me everything you've got. Send me life's gut punches. Serve me tea, scalding hot. Don't tell me to stop or try to tell me to stop. Let me feel the fear of losing and the thrill of being top and the thrill of being on top as well, I suppose. Take me for dinner and treat me to roses. Pose with me in toilet mirrors. Reject all my proposals. Be at my beck and call and have me there at your disposal, because I want to feel everything. I want to drink that coffee that's been shit out by weasels, and I want to smoke joints in a bar in Bali and confront my inner evil on a warm September night. And I quite like to go medieval in the bedroom and then go to a reenactment and chuck back mead beneath a blood moon. I want to drink you in. I want to taste your sweat. I want to feel the types of feelings I'll never forget. So duet with me on drunken nights and kiss me on my neck, because I want to feel everything. I want to breathe this whole world in. I want to fly and I want to fall and I want to douse myself in sin, and I want to pull you into me until we melt together in the most delicious fuck up that the world could ever revel in. I want to sing, I want to dance, I want to let both God and the devil in, and I want to cry myself to sleep and feel this earth's benevolence. I want to feel everything. Just that, nothing more. I'd like a wild buffet of feelings parked outside my brain's back door. I want to sample every colour that this rainbow has to offer. I want to feel my aura change. I want to know I made a dent in my timeline's page. I want to feel everything, so please, take my soul. I trust you to destroy it and then replace it whole. Break me down to atoms and I'll turn into coal. Take me from my prime, rip me a new arsehole and crush me, 'cause I'll become diamond. Take me down to hell and I'll crawl back, because I always find me. So at the end of all of this, there is only really one thing to say, and pronouncement may be an announcement, but I'll just declare it here today. I am ready to feel everything. I want to feel everything. I need to feel everything. So come on, give it all. Thank you. Oh, that felt good. I haven't read in ages. I first met Charlie Parker. God, he submitted his collection It's Like This during our first ever submission call. Charlie's work is incredible. It echoes kind of the northern working class fire and vigour and anger and passion, and his collection is all about being northern but not in a stereotypical way. His work is just so incredible to listen to as well as to read, as you'll see now. So, without further ado, Charlie Parker, everybody.
Full English. The night before, waited under streetlights, dusk approaching in an invisible caress. 15 years illuminated a 10-foot walk to my front door, easy and careless, slinging memories back and around like a spirograph in blood-coloured ink. Do you know who she's with now? Have you seen where he drinks? I brought over the teas to soothe our battered heads, steaming into bearded faces, smiling over that time we got in when we were 17. It was all ours in some drunken washing machine, neon club signs, short skirts and 2-for-1s, smiling about the time I scored that hat-trick, smiling about the girls we wished we'd kissed. We finished our full English, got another drink, then in the living room comfort of Wetherspoons we got onto a conversation about Farage, and soon the tea went cold, a relic of the past. So. So I'm the only one that went to uni from my old town mates, and for some reason one of them decided to bring up Jordan Peterson. And so when you've already had a few drinks, you're like, oh fucking hell, this is like throwing off my balance, and I'm trying to enjoy a good time, but no, you've decided to try and praise him, so I'm going to have to argue back, and it's like, oh, it just gets to you, right? But also you can't patronise at the same time, and just sort of like, well yeah, uni mate, you know what I mean? So this one's slightly same thing but a little bit different. I met a German friend when I went to university, and this is how friendships change, I guess, as you grow up. It's called State Education. The first thing I asked was about Nazis and what they taught in German comprehensives, not through any sick form of gloating, you see, nor of a great need for anything to come to terms with. It's funny when I think back to dull history lessons in the ragtag comp I attended. Mum and Dad worried about bullying. Don't you go messing with wrong'uns. I think they were just glad I paid attention and passed the right exams. 2 World Wars, 1 World Cup, and we'd have all been called Hans if Churchill hadn't told Hitler to belt up. More than that, Germans bad, England good, were long-standing convictions cemented through incessant documentaries secretly warning us of an ever-present invasion, a rented subscription of yearly lest we forget. Don't forget your fucking poppy. Like Russians, French, Polish or Czechs didn't suffer either. And don't get soppy, we've no time for dramatics. Only seething hordes of red-faced raging men hooked on nationalist protocol, a devotional needing to prove we're British only, thank you very much. I saw the salutes, those salutes protecting statues of slave-owning psychopaths, polished to a perfect shine by firebrand brutes. Try to think with churlish aftermath of another people who celebrate passionate loss like us English, Gaza's tears piercing male hearts with acceptable hurt, held up for all young lads since, a great player, loved his country, lived in a bottle once he died in Turin. Your grandparents were Nazis? Of course, they had to be. So English in my ignorance I'd forgotten the old mantra, don't mention the war. Plucky Dunkirk retreat, sorry about Dresden old chap, but all is fair in love and war. Even the most inane media dross is reduced to fucking wars. Brash bravado from toothy jabberers getting blood hot over random mentions, Dunkirk's spirit though. Constant reminders that without these spineless tax siphoners protecting our simple minds, we'd soon get it from the Krauts, proud, nauseating, only affecting every facet of every bloody thing. I'd imagine the Euros would exercise some ghouls, demons that haunt every British system. It's not broken, it was made by the rulers. To reminisce about glorious 96 sunshine, 30 years of her, it's coming home until, of course, the Germans won on penalties, the swines. You taught me never to cheers alone, and how via Gerard, Heskey and Owen scoring 3, you English are always talking about the 5-1. Who got to the final that year? I didn't see it until in that pub we heard that song. There were 10 German bombers in the air, and the RAF from England shot them down. Whilst I looked to you, thinking about where in Europe would have slung bombs or fired rounds at each other a few generations ago. Instead we survived on lengthy voice notes, wondering if state schools really taught us all we know, or are we cursed to countries in which to dote. And now flowing round my head when it gets late is something you told me, which I beg us English retain. Wenn ich mit der Zeit geht, muss mit der Zeit gehen. If you don't keep up with the times, you have to keep up with the times. I've been Charlie Parker, thank you very much.
So, we're up to you.
Right.
So, in terms of your selected poems, talk us through your choices. Why have you chosen these specific ones to read this evening?
Yeah, I think when I was kind of putting together what I would read, I was kind of thinking, I guess, about like different parts of me. So I've got some that are about kind of being quite young. I was born with a rare congenital bone disease. So yeah, I finally, 35 or something years later, get to take revenge on a really, really unpleasant dinner lady. There's something about coming out in there. I wanted to read Be My Carer. So the first poem is on page 17 if people are reading along. It's called Fragile. They pronounce my bones imperfect from the start. Detective type 1 collagen plays a big part. My eyes are blue, but not in the right place. Spacing slightly off. Kids call me alien face. Teachers warn classmates to be careful as I could break. So they hit, pinch and punch and then call me a fake. Till one trips me outside and I land on my arm hard. I roll slowly onto my back so they can all regard the compound fracture and its associated gore. Bone ripping through skin and blood on the floor. The trunchbull dinner lady's abuse dies on her lips. A hand reaching to yank me up is firmly back on her hips. Her face drains of colour, except for a hint of green. Her skin takes on a somewhat cold and slightly sweaty sheen. She barks at the owner of the tripping leg to go for help. The shock is fading now and the pain is making me yelp. I'm also partly fascinated. I can actually see the bone. Normally confined to x-rays where nasty breaks are shown. The ambulance is coming and of course quite a stir. All well and good, but my vision starts to blur. The pain is now roaring and I feel distinctly sick. I can hear the sirens, they've arrived pretty quick. Surveying my tormentors, none will meet my eye. A particularly shitty one is having a wee cry. A tiny bit of me actually feels quite triumphantly proud. For far too long, their taunting has left me cowed. Now I've been proven legit, and in spectacular style, they really weren't lying when they said I was fragile.
Do you remember the dinner lady's name?
No, I remember exactly what she looked like though, and it was a bulldog chewing a wasp. It was satisfying. I had to have 2 operations on that arm, and even at the time I remember thinking, yeah, it's totally worth it. Yeah. Okay, so the next poem is on page 46 and it's called Blatantly Bisexual. Hello world, let me enunciate clearly. The way I fancy people is patently queerly. Like delicate petals starting to unfurl, I realise it's not just boys but also girls. Joyfully I realise this goes beyond the binary, but all around me others are derisory. Homophobic hate pours into my ears, my authenticity smothered by other people's fears. Apparently to be different is unnatural. God's word on the matter is apparently unilateral. It's incredible my brain's capacity to deny that I'd ever fancied anyone who wasn't a guy. That there's something different about girl crushers, differentiating desperately to spare my blushes, joking they'd be the one if I was going to turn, then trying to ignore that shameful line burn. Forcing myself to forget kisses and touches, got to protect myself from Satan's clutches, telling myself it's somehow intellectual when I'm actually blatantly bisexual. Passing off girlfriends by dropping a syllable, trying to make the feelings shared more permissible. Scared of rejection and being called perverted. By God, friends and family, I will be deserted. It was when my children cheerfully came out, calmly sure the only thing I'd care about was them feeling who they were was accepted, that their pronouns and identities would always be respected. I was being crushed by an incredible weight that increased every time I said I was straight. They told me I could come out too. What you said to us, we say to you. Validity is yours for you to claim. You don't have to carry anyone else's shame. How you define your identity is your choice. No one ever gets to silence your voice. Where are we?
Is this Becky from the acknowledgements?
Yeah.
This is when I got thrown out the hospital.
I need to hear that story later.
We don't need to do the Kiss from a Rose karaoke story because that's in another. I skirt round it.
Well, now you've mentioned it now, though.
It just turns out that Kiss from a Rose by Seal has a lot more lyrics in it than you thought.
It really does.
And it's quite hard to drink after a not insubstantial amount of vodka.
Yeah, that's true.
So the next poem is Being My Carer, which I talked about a little bit earlier in terms of kind of, again, I guess being sort of dedicated to my children. But
Page 12.
yeah, sorry. Sorry, miss. But also I think in terms of young carers, there are a lot of young carers. There's about 7,000 young carers in Sheffield, and I think I read about 800,000 across the country, and a lot of them are not being supported or helped or even sort of acknowledged. So this is the poem that I wrote. I never wanted you to be my carer, children far too tiny to be the bearer of a parent's life, an unbearable weight, robbing you of the chance to create and learn through chaos, fun and mess, instead all focused on my progress, being so young and yet so quiet, never daring to start a childish riot. Such adult concerns resting on your shoulder, juggling the anxieties of someone much older. The reality of death dropped on your head, pale little faces trying to hide their dread. Waiting for the next thing to go catastrophically wrong, thinking that for me you've got to be strong. While still learning to spell your own name, also wondering if you're somehow to blame. Daily fears at home time each day, that if I wasn't there I'd really gone away. That if you couldn't see me I might have died. Then fierce cuddles as on me you cried, repeating you're sorry for making me sad. If you made me ill that would be bad. Constant checking if there was anything you could do, agonising guilt or what I put you through. I never wanted you to be my carer. I'd done it too, and I wanted life to be fairer. For you to have a family where your needs were met, instead of all these traumas I know you can't forget. I know sometimes you feel overwhelmed by a life that makes you feel compelled to always factor in my needs before your own, sometimes afraid to leave me alone. But you have also grown into your role, accepted that some things you can't control. Reshaped your trauma to help shape services, making them more fit for the purposes of supporting other young carers like you by sharing your experiences and different view, talking to adults in powerful positions, telling your own story to politicians, taking statistics and giving them a face, politely, determinedly stating your case, talking about a part of your life often hidden, and for so many other young people all across Britain.
But hearing you read has been so fulfilling, and I don't get to hear the poets read a huge amount, so I forced Fiona to send me videos of herself reading, but seeing it in the flesh is just so magical, and I just absolutely love the collection. My personal favourite is Yellow Sticker, which I just love the whole metaphor of feeling like you're on a conveyor belt being labelled repeatedly with different things. And Living Eulogy, I think, is incredible. And they're my two personal favourites, and they're next to each other in the collection. So that's that.
I can say whatever. Okay, she's very good. She's a bit good, isn't she? I mean, I would say that she's good because she's a very good friend, but actually she is very, very good. It was actually kind of hard at times because obviously I know what some of these events are related to, and made me very emotional. But that's the thing, is that you want to be moved emotionally, and I couldn't be prouder of her, and I can't wait to read the rest of it. So yeah, I think it's great.
This is a fantastic book filled with some powerful imagery that people really should read and buy and read again, and buy another one for their friends and their family and the friends that haven't even met yet.
Okay, genuinely, she got different perspective. She got her perspective across and helped people see different things, which is exactly what she wanted and said exactly what she wanted from it.
Okay, hey, yes, I'm Rosie from Juno Books, and we were absolutely thrilled to launch Fiona Hutchings' book. It's an incredibly moving collection. I nearly cried when she read one of the poems. Yeah, it was a really wonderful evening.
It was amazing seeing Fiona reading her words in person. From seeing her the first time ever read poetry to seeing her now has just been such a fantastic experience, and I really enjoyed just sharing that moment with her. It was really something very special.
They are talking about terrible karaoke or who you are and Oh, did we? Oh no.
Well, it's been on the entire time.